UFC Fight Night Ankalaev versus Walker just took place, and I'm going to break down every single fight of the card, starting out the first fight of the night, which was Joshua Van versus Felipe Bunes. I picked Joshua Van. He ended up getting it done by round 2 KO, but he had yet again another lackluster first-round performance. In his first 3 UFC fights, he is 3-0. He's only 22 years old. I do understand that, but he has dropped the first round and lost the first round in all of these fights. I think it's going to be an issue for him moving forward because a lot of it has to do with him finding the range. He mentioned it in his post-fight interview. He struggles finding the range, and that's going to be because he is a shorter, stocky guy with not the lengthiest reach. Unfortunate for Joshua Van, but I still believe in him as a prospect. He's 22 years old. He's only going to improve in the first rounds and throughout his career as well. But I think it will be a problem for him against some high-level strikers. Felipe Bunes did kind of just outpoint him. Landed a couple leg kicks, couple of strikes at range, a couple of clean shots against Joshua Van that did have me worried, but he has a pretty solid chin recovery, and very good cardio. Very, very tough fighter, and I was actually looking to live bet him after the first round because I knew Felipe Bunes does not have the greatest cardio. He ended up gassing after round 2, and that was a large reason why Joshua Van did find the finish, but he is such a good gas tank, so tough, and he's very good at making adjustments as well. I do like that he was a little bit more active, started out pressuring a little bit more. What I did not like from Joshua Van here, and this is my biggest criticism, is he showed kind of a lack in the fight IQ. When he had Felipe Bunes hurt originally, he shot in on a takedown. It did eventually meet back up on the feet, and then he found the KO, but he shot for the takedown. And he mentioned in his post-fight interview he was a dumbass motherfucker, quote for quote, that's what he said, because he shot in and wanted to get the submission win. He said his coaches were giving him grief, so that is a pretty solid sign. I'm not going to, deduct his performance that much just because of that one error. But if I'm going to criticize anything, it's going to be that I want to see him start out a little bit faster, and I don't want to see him shooting in on takedowns once he has someone hurt, because Felipe Bunes has a lot of submissions to his name. But Felipe Bunes, I don't think he's going to have much success in the UFC. Although he has some nice power and some nice submissions, he needs some better cardio to have success here. Moving on to the next fight, it was Nikolas Motta versus Tom Nolan. I picked Tom Nolan. He got knocked out in the first minute. Good for Nikolas Motta. Nikolas Motta really hasn't had the greatest chin. Tom Nolan is a guy that is super rangy. I think he's like 6'3" in the lightweight division. He's on par with Jalen Turner's frame. I think he might even have a bigger reach. When I looked at Tom Nolan, the guy moves quick. He's super powerful, long, rangy striker who has power. That was the main thing. He had power. Nikolas Motta gets hit, and Nikolas Motta does not have a very good chin. I picked Tom Nolan by round 1 KO, but ultimately, I did say that if Tom Nolan lost, it'll be one of two things. And I said the most likely scenario is he gets caught after overextending, because he's kind of open to getting countered. And if he goes and entertains some pocket exchanges, or he's overextending on a punch, Nikolas Motta can find a big shot and knock him out. And that's exactly what happened. I had bets on the under 5 minutes. Well, not 5 minutes. I guess prize picks, yeah, under 5 minutes, but under 1 round for this reason. And the other thing I was thinking is there's a world where Nikolas Motta goes out there and exposes a massive hole in Tom Nolan's grappling game by shooting in on takedowns, potentially finding a submission. But Motta, I don't think has even shot a takedown in his UFC career, much less landed one. And he doesn't have a submission throughout his entire career to his name. So I wasn't really betting on that. Good for Nikolas Motta. If he lost, he would have gotten cut. I thought he was going to lose to Trey Ogden. The fact that, Trey Ogden was robbed of a win is crazy to me. He was clearly winning the first 2 rounds. I know 2 judges gave Nikolas Motta the second round, but still Trey Ogden should have won that second round. It was 2-0 clearly, and Trey Ogden was dominating the third round, had him in a submission, and the ref made a mistake, which ended up resulting in another mistake by the judges, which then resulted in screwing Trey Ogden out of that win. Anyways, my point is, if Trey Ogden won that fight, which he should have, very clearly should have, but whatever, Nikolas Motta would be cut right now. Now, as a result, he gets another fight against Tom Nolan, which was seen as a pretty tough matchup by the UFC. I mean, Tom Nolan was a prospect they were probably trying to build up here. Minus 350 favorite here, and he got knocked out in the first minute. Nikolas Motta probably doesn't stay in the UFC for much longer, maybe a couple more fights. Maybe he gets some traction going. I think he's a pretty young guy, but I've never been too high on him. Still doesn't have the greatest chin, but good for him. He's fun to watch. Tom Nolan, I don't know how I feel about you, man. He is only 24 years old, so he can make improvements, but he is very hittable, and I don't want to see you getting KO'd this early in your career. He might have a bad chin. He's one of those skinny guys that I could see getting chin multiple times, but he has the athletic tools to be something very good. I'm not giving up hope on him yet, but he's clearly not there yet. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Westin Wilson versus Jan Silva. I could be really high on Jan Silva, hype up his performance, but I'm going to tell you this. Westin Wilson sucks. He does. I mean, his striking defense is horrible. I think he was trying to get KO'd. I'm not trying to disrespect him. I know he's got good submissions. I know he's a Taekwondo, or maybe it's a karate brown belt along with the jiu-jitsu brown belt. He's got a lot of submissions to his name, and he's got a very rangy frame. I don't know how the dude's like 6'3" in the featherweight division. That's insane to me. I thought that potentially could have given John Silva some issues, but don't worry about that. Westin Wilson wanted to get hit, and he got hit, and John Silva knocked him out in the first round. Some people might criticize John Silva, saying he should have gotten Westin Wilson out of there earlier. I disagree. I think when he knocked down Westin Wilson, he didn't want to chase this finish because he knew Westin Wilson did have some pretty solid submissions to his name and is pretty dangerous on the ground. So overall, I don't fault John Silva all that much, but I'm not going to praise him too much because that's a fight that he should be finishing in the first round. But hey, that's a good sign from him. Gave him some confidence. His first win, his UFC debut. Say what you want about John Silva. I mean, some people don't like the whole showboating thing. I'm not a big, guy that loves it either. But at least John Silva goes out there, tries to have entertaining fights, unlike Waldo Cortes-Acosta, which we'll get to in just one second. He's an abomination. He did win his fight, but we'll get to that in just one second. John Silva is at least like a cool character, extremely autistic, which is why he's so lovable. He goes out there with the funny little stare down, barks a bunch, definitely does showboat, but hey, at least he goes out there and throws some leather. John Silva, round 1 KO, good from him. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Farid Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. Good from Farid, but Taylor actually showed some pretty solid takedown defense. Better than I expected. I think Farid only got 1 takedown in the first round, and he shot like 6 or 7. Taylor Lapilus, very good at getting back up to his feet. Showed some massively improved takedown defense. The problem with his style is he is kind of more of a counter striker. And when he's waiting for Farid to kind of push the pace on the feet, it's going to be hard for him to outpoint him, considering Farid is going to be landing takedowns. And Farid ended up winning unanimous decision. I think it was 2 30-27s and a 29-28, or maybe it was 30-27s across the board. But ultimately, Farid is a fighter that is pretty damn good. He's got some good fight IQ. He takes it down to the feet very well. I said that completely wrong. He gets it down to the ground pretty well. He's got some pretty solid offensive wrestling. He's got some nice submissions, and he's got some nice striking as well. He's a pretty technical guy with some very solid cardio. His chin's a little bit unproven. We haven't seen him eat a big shot from a power puncher yet, but we'll obviously figure that out as it goes. He doesn't really strike me as a guy that's super chinny. He stays in shape. He doesn't have like the Ian Gary head frame, and we'll see if Ian Gary's chinny, but he's been knocked down by Kanan Song. I don't know why I brought up Ian Gary. Anyways, he doesn't have the head shape that looks to me like he'll be super chinny, but if a big shot cracks him, he probably will go down. Anyways, Farid Basharat, high fight IQ fighter. I do like that from him. His brother's pretty high fight IQ. I've been saying this for a while. Good cardio, coached well, found the takedowns even when Taylor Lapilus was stuffing a large majority of them, and he kind of took advantage on the fact that Taylor Lapilus didn't really want to lead the dance. So it was kind of a close fight on the feet. Taylor was having his moments. Even Farid had some of his moments. But he worked in the takedowns. The takedown threat worked in very well with him. And what I like about Farid is he has good enough striking to really just make it that much harder to stuff his takedowns, because you have to respect his striking. And if you disrespect his striking, he'll beat you on the feet. If you disrespect his takedowns, he'll take you down very easily. It's a very tough style to deal with. He's got some nice submissions, as I mentioned, probably 3 times so far. Impressive performance. But he's not looking like Khabib on the come up. He's not finding every single takedown very easily, but he had a lot more success as the fight progressed. His cardio was so good. How many takedowns did he shoot? Like 15 to 20? I believe in him moving forward. I think his brother's pretty good as well. Love them. Good camp. I didn't listen to the post-fight interview, so I don't know. But anyways, Taylor Lapilus, I like to see improvements from his game. We'll see what he does next. I think he needs to be a little bit more busy on the feet, but oh well. It is what it is. This wasn't that boring of a fight. Some people called it pretty boring. There was entertaining moments, like Taylor stuffed a couple takedowns to go back out on the feet. Like, it was a fight that kept a pretty high pace. There was things happening. It wasn't super boring. There was some control time, yes, but ultimately there were like things happening in this fight, unlike a wet blanket fest that we've seen in the past. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Marcus McGhee versus Gaston Bolanos. Great job from Marcus McGhee. Gaston Bolanos is a world champion in Muay Thai, or national champion in Muay Thai, something like that, a very high-level degree in Muay Thai. He's had success in kickboxing as well, and he's been transitioning over to MMA. Marcus McGhee really didn't have to use much grappling to win this fight. I think he shot 1 takedown in the beginning, got the takedown, but Gaston Bolanos ended up getting it back on the feet. And then Marcus entertained the stand-up for the whole time. And he fucking ran through Gaston Bolanos. He made Gaston Bolanos not look like a very good fighter, I'll tell you that much. He was landing the bigger shots, clearly won round one, rocked him at multiple points. If he kind of pushed a little bit heavier in round one, he maybe potentially could have found the finish, but he waited till round two, found some more big shots, and had a pretty brutal KO against Gaston Bolanos. Great job from Marcus McGhee. I mean, man, he's 33 years old. He also trains at MMA Lab with another guy that fought on this card named Mario Bautista. I'll talk about him in just one moment, but this is looking like a very, very solid fight camp. Marcus McGhee, super athletic, super powerful. Very, very, very impressive here. That was a round 2 KO. Yeah, I already mentioned that. Let's move on to the next fight of the card. Oh, yeah, I'll talk about who I picked. So far, I've picked Joshua Van correct. I missed the Tom Nolan pick. I picked John Silva correctly. I picked Farid Basharat correctly. And I also picked Marcus McGhee correctly. Here, I picked Preston Parsons. A lot of people pick Matthew Semelsberger. I love Matthew Semelsberger. I think he's a pretty fun guy to watch when it is a striking matchup. And this was actually a very entertaining fight, although there was a lot of grappling exchanges. There was stand-up that was interesting. Preston would land some takedowns, and there'd be an interesting scramble back up to the feet. Matthew Semelsberger was threatening some submissions. Round 3 was a lot of fun because Matthew had 2 chokes that were nearly in. There was a Kimura nearly in from Preston Parsons. He found a couple of takedowns. Just a high-paced fight. A lot was happening, and if you know Matthew Semelsberger and you knew his resume, you knew that he had the potential to knock out Preston Parsons. He landed a couple of shots, but Preston Parsons also kept it pretty entertaining on the feet. Maybe not fight of the night, but it was definitely a pretty entertaining fight with a very high pace. Ultimately, Preston Parsons found the takedowns, had success on the feet, more success than I was expecting, but Matthew Semelsberger also made improvements in his ability to get back up to the feet. When he got taken down, he'd probably find butterfly guard, and then he'd kick Preston Parsons off of him a lot of times, keep it on the feet, and when it was on the feet, Preston Parsons had a lot more success than I was expecting. He was working a lot of the low kicks, and then when it was in the pocket, he was actually having a lot of success. So good from Preston Parsons here. Really did push a pace, found the takedowns. Yeah, overall not that boring a fight. Round 3 was a lot of fun. Matthew Semelsberger is probably getting cut, unfortunately. I think that's his 2nd or 3rd loss in a row. Previously, he lost to Jeremiah Wells. I thought that was a robbery, but oh no, Uros Medic. So he's now lost to Jeremiah Wells, Uros Medic, and Preston Parsons. Matthew Semelsberger is a guy that's a lot of fun to watch, but unfortunately, we probably see him go here. Moving on to the next fight of the card, Andrei Arlovski versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Bro, I don't like Waldo. This guy is a bum. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he's emoting on Andrei Arlovski. Andrei was really pissed at him. There was this one moment, I think it was in round 1 or 2, but Waldo's mouthpiece fell out. And then Andrei Arlovski kind of kicks it. He tries to kick it out the cage. They were kind of beefing randomly throughout the fight. Andrei really didn't like the fact that Waldo was doing his whole salsa dance thing. But anyways, Waldo is just a very interesting fighter to watch. Not because he's good. Heavyweights suck. This was a painful fight to watch. The worst fight on the entire card by far. And essentially what happened is low pace. And when there was a high pace, they were missing a lot of shots. None of them were really landing clean. There was one moment in round 3 where Waldo kind of rocked Andrei a little bit. Maybe a little bit in round 1 as well. But Andrei clearly won round 2 in my opinion. It was pretty close. I'm not going to say clearly, but I think he won round 2. Round 1 went to Waldo. Waldo was kind of coasting. He probably thought he won round 2 and eventually stepped it up in round 3 and won. But technically, bro, when Waldo throws his right hand, I cringe because the dude's throwing it so wide. It's looping so freaking wide. And if he just throws it straight down the pipe, maybe he finds a knockout on Andrei Arlovski. And I think he had the tools to find the first round knockout. I predicted him first round knockout, but he doesn't really push a pace. He kind of just coasts. So boring to watch. He throws a bunch of bullshit too. Sometimes I watch him throw a head kick or he'll just throw something way out of range. I think there was a flying knee where I'm just like, bro, this guy is someone that could potentially be ranked in the heavyweight division. Heavyweights are a joke. That's a takeaway from this fight. Cut them both. I know Waldo's like maybe not that annoying of a dude, but it was kind of funny to see at the end when Andrei was beefing with Waldo. Andrei did not like the dude, but Andrei's 44. He's probably going to retire now, unfortunately. He just got knocked out by Dontel Mays, and before that, I think he lost another fight. Yeah, kind of sucked to see. Not a big fan of Waldo, but hey. And he emotes throughout the fight. I think I mentioned that. But I mentioned Jean Silva before. At least Jean Silva brings the fight. Waldo will emote, and then he'll just freaking throw a couple of jabs out there, throw a couple of looping punches that have no chance of landing. And he's making Andrei Arlovski look like a decently fast fighter. I don't know. They're just, both of them weren't very technically sound. I know Andrei Arlovski is decaying. He's decomposing, so that's part of it for him. But Waldo Cortes-Acosta, bro, push a pace against a 45-year-old. Why are you celebrating that much after not being able to finish a 45-year-old who's on his way out of the UFC? Yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. Phil Hawes versus Bruno Ferreira. Bro, This was the most strong emotion I felt on the entire card. I picked Bruno Ferreira round 1 KO. I almost flipped my pick to Phil Hawes, but I stayed on the Bruno Ferreira side for the reason that Phil Hawes has been knocked out multiple times throughout his career, and he got knocked out again. Brutally. Yeah, bro, it sucks to see. Phil Hawes was crying at the end, weeping. I mean, I hate to see it, bro. And typically, I'm pretty impartial when someone should get cut, but this is one of those times where UFC, give him a layup matchup, bro. I feel bad for the dude. He's skilled. He clearly trains hard, man, and he got cooked here. But good from Bruno Ferreira. I don't want to take away from his performance just because he beat Phil Hawes without a chin. He actually had a lot of success here. He shot in on 3 takedowns, got the 3rd takedown, held Phil Hawes for some time, eventually made its way back up to the feet. There were some more striking exchanges. Bruno got close a couple of times, but then eventually, after landing a couple more blows, and Phil Hawes' chin held up for a couple of shots that may have, knocked him out in other fights. So I'm not saying his chin got better, but I'm just saying, like, considering what everyone will tell you about his chin, you wouldn't have expected him to eat some of the shots that he ate. There was a pretty clean left hook that he ate from Bruno Ferreira. So then as the fight goes later, Bruno Ferreira lands a very clean knee that Phil Hawes perfectly ducks into. Phil Hawes gets rocked, and then Bruno Ferreira's dumbass initiates the clinch. The reason why I'm mad here is because I had the under 4.75 minutes. And of course, it hits at like 4.93. Because Bruno Ferreira, well, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have hit because it was towards the end of the round anyways. But Bruno Ferreira, instead of separating and finding the finish, seeing that Phil Hawes is on wobbly legs, initiates the clinch, allows Phil Hawes to survive for a little bit longer. Eventually, they separate, and eventually he finds the first round knockout. I think it was a shot behind the ear. I think it was a rear left hand, something like that. Phil Hawes got dropped, and then he landed one follow-up punch that knocked Phil Hawes out, and then Chris Taglioni got there like 2 punches late. A corpse of Phil Hawes ate 2 massive blows from Bruno Ferreira, and yeah, his career is probably done. I would advise him to retire, but I feel bad for the man. Honestly, I really do feel bad for the guy. He's super skilled. He clearly trains hard. Yeah, bro, it sucks. It sucks. It really does suck. I wanted him to go with the wrestle-heavy game plan just because I thought he would have the ability to take down Bruno Ferreira, but Bruno Ferreira had some good grappling of his own. I think he's a judo base. I think he's a judo black belt, something like that. The fact that he found the takedowns on Phil Hawes was pretty impressive. I still am not the biggest believer in his striking because he is open to getting countered, but he has the power to really threaten anyone. So I'll say that much. Bruno Ferreira's not bad. I'm not calling him a bum. I don't want to call him a fantastic prospect yet. I think he's 31 years old, so he's going to have a lot of success right now because he's pretty much in his prime. Anyways, Bruno Ferreira, round 1 KO, good for him. I feel bad for Phil Hawes, really bad. Just something about the way he got knocked out, the way he's laying there as a corpse, getting getting hit 2 more times as the ref pulls him off, and then he starts crying afterwards. Doesn't sit well with me, man. I'm not going to lie. I would like to see him in another fight, but the reality of it is he's probably getting cut. And maybe he continues to fight. I don't know. Phil Hawes, I mean, look for another career, man. Respectfully, you're a great fighter. But unfortunately, it really is sad to see that you were never destined to be a fighter, not because of your heart, but simply because of your chin. So that's what it is. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Ricky Simón versus Mario Bautista, bro. Mario Bautista is him, man. I picked Ricky Simón here. I wasn't super confident simply for the fact that Mario Bautista has shown a pretty solid ability to scramble back up to his feet once he's gotten taken down. But my logic was Damon Blackshear took him down 4 times in the first round. And outside of that, I mean, he wasn't taken down after that, but Damon only shot in on like a couple other takedowns outside of that. But if Damon could find the takedowns, I was expecting Ricky Simón to potentially find the takedowns, potentially control him. And even if Mario scrambled back up to the feet, Ricky Simón has some pretty solid cardio, so I could have seen him really shooting on some takedowns, just non-stop, scramble back up to the feet. Ricky Simón lands another takedown, and Ricky Simón has pretty solid power as well, so I could have seen him landing a pretty big shot in the clinch. And even when it was on the feet, I viewed Mario Bautista as the better striker, definitely the higher volume guy when it comes to striking, but Ricky Simón had the more powerful punches, so that's why I leaned towards Ricky Simón's side. I got it wrong. And, hey, I don't care because Mario Bautista is a guy that turned me into an instant fan. I thought he lost his last fight against Damon Blackshear, but he came back, showed massive improvements, and looked so damn good in the striking. He called out Rob Font, make that fight happen because he will run through Rob Font. I think he knocks him out. He is so fucking quick, man. Ricky Simón, when it came to the speed comparison, didn't really have shit for him. And Ricky Simón's not a super slow guy. Is he the quickest guy in the bantamweight division? No. But Mario Bautista, man, quick body kicks, rips the leg kick very well. That knee he has is so damn good. He's a pretty good boxer as well. I mean, he can get clipped, Ricky Simón did drop him in the first round, so I did think Ricky Simón won the first round. But it wasn't like one of those knockdowns that was super... What is the word? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. It's an easy word. Okay, it wasn't like a super clear knockdown, one of the best knockdowns you can potentially see, because he was on one leg, and part of it was he probably was off balance, but he got stunned off the hook, so I did count it as a real knockdown, and just with the scoring criteria of MMA, seeing that there was a knockdown for Ricky Simón, I gave him round 1. But Mario Bautista was beating him very handily up until that point, and he beat him very handily in rounds 2 and rounds 3. He got taken down like once in the first round. Anyways, as the fight went on, he got better at stuffing takedowns. His takedown defense massively improved. His ability to scramble back up to the feet was great. He's also got some good submissions in his own right, bro. This guy is good. I think he finds a lot of success at the bantamweight division. I can't even, I was not expecting him to look that damn good. And I almost feel like a dumbass for picking Ricky Simón. But his last performance against Damon Blackshear really wasn't that impressive. So maybe Damon Blackshear is a future champ. But I don't know. I'm going to say that I would pick Mario Bautista in a rematch after Damon Blackshear because he showed clear improvements to his game. His striking looks good. He looks so damn quick. He's got decent power. He's coached at MMA Lab with Sean O'Malley, Marcus McGhee, who we mentioned earlier. I believe in this camp now. I did before, but I believe in it more now. He's got good cardio. He's got great cardio, man. I do worry about a power puncher potentially finding the chin of him. But this is a guy I could see having a lot of success in the bantamweight division. Make him versus Font. He beats Font. And I think he'll have a lot of success, as I've said a lot of times throughout this segment. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benítez. Jim Miller won. I picked Jim Miller here. Good card of picks for me, man. I only missed 2 picks, which was the Tom Nolan pick in the most recent fight we just talked about, Ricky Simón. I went 8-2. Maybe it was 9-11, one of the two. Manel Kape should have been fighting. I'll get to that next. Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benítez. I mean, Jim Miller won the first 2 rounds pretty clearly. Had a lot of success with the striking. I think he worked in a takedown in round 2. Yeah, he worked in a takedown in round 2, had some control time, ended up winning that round pretty clearly. Same thing with round 1. It was on the feet. Benítez started landing some low kicks, and Jim Miller answered back with some nice low kicks. He kept running. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. He kept landing that one combination where it was like a 1-2, and it'll end up with the low kicks, similarly to how we have seen Alexander Volkanovski do multiple times throughout his career, especially against Max Holloway. I think he did it multiple times. Anyways, Jim Miller looked good. He looks sharp. He doesn't look 40 years old. He's going to turn around and fight at UFC 300, and I like that. He's a cool guy. I think he's 37-17 now. So a lot of damn fights. Fun, likable dude. Put him on UFC 300, maybe against Paul Felder. He called him out. That'd be pretty cool. Jim Miller versus Tony Ferguson. Jim Miller versus Matt Brown, who we called out. I mean, I'm not really interested in that one. But, yeah, he'll be on UFC 300. You can expect that to happen. Impressive performance. He was winning on the feet for the most part. I mean, round 2, it was getting pretty close on the feet, and then he found the takedowns and won that round. Round 3 comes around. He ends up, I think he was losing on the feet. It was a very close fight on the feet in round 2. I do think Gabriel Benítez was landing some pretty big shots. It was pretty close. And then he found the takedown, eventually working in and finding the neck crank in round 3. Good from Jim Miller. He looks great for 40. I know Gabriel Benítez isn't the greatest fighter at this point in his career, but he looked great out there. And Gabriel Benítez didn't look bad either. He was landing some good low kicks. They both had some pretty solid low kicks in this fight. Entertaining fight to watch. Good for Jim Miller. The 40-year-old still got it. He's not decaying. We love to see it. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we have Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. I picked Magomed Ankalaev. A lot of people picked Johnny Walker, and I could understand why if it was a pure striking fight, and it ended up being, right? And Magomed Ankalaev won. I said that Johnny Walker kind of has an unorthodox style that can get figured out more and more as the fight goes on, and that's eventually what did happen. If you watch the first round, Magomed Ankalaev got clipped early. Not like super clean, but got clipped with a spinning back fist from Johnny Walker, and then he made the adjustment to kind of look for him, and then from that point forward, whenever Johnny Walker spun, he either ducked down or just kind of backed up and got out of the way from the spinning shit from Johnny Walker. I would have liked to see Johnny Walker throw a couple more flying knees. I don't even think he threw one. He threw one spinning wheel kick, and it was the most telegraphed thing I've ever seen. I gave the first round to Magomed Ankalaev, but Johnny Walker was landing some very solid low kicks. Magomed Ankalaev has a clear hole in his game for the low kicks. We saw Jan Blachowicz really hurt him with the low kicks, crippled him. He was hobbling. He wasn't really hobbling here, but you could tell they probably were going to keep affecting him if he took another 2 or 3 rounds from those low kicks from Johnny Walker. But eventually, Magomed Ankalaev turns around in round 2. I think he kind of clinches up. It was this weird scenario where he caught Johnny Walker's hands, then lands out right over the top, dropping Johnny Walker, and follows it up with this weird like hook uppercut punch that we saw Jamahal Hill do the exact same thing to Johnny Walker against. Another Johnny Walker-esque KO. And I do feel bad for the guy, but ultimately, I mean, Magomed Ankalaev was the pick, so I was rooting for him. He's a technical fighter. He's got good striking. Does he get the next title shot, though? I don't think he deserves it over Jamahal Hill. I think it's simple as this. Jamahal Hill knocked out Johnny Walker earlier in the first round, and Jamahal Hill then turned around and beat Glover Teixeira on short notice. Jamahal Hill deserves a title shot over Magomed Ankalaev. Now the question is Jamahal Hill, not Jamahal Hill, is Alex Pereira headlining UFC 300? And Jamahal Hill might not be ready by then. So then we would do Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira in the meantime, which would fucking suck. Don't fucking do that, UFC. I don't want to see that as the main event. I'm a big Pereira fan. I think Magomed Ankalaev would beat him. I think in a title fight, Magomed Ankalaev would resort to his ways of nut hugging, and he would love to sniff Alex Pereira's balls for 5 rounds, and that would probably end up happening. Alex Pereira has gotten taken down by multiple fighters now. Brunno Silva, Andreas Michailidis, Izzy. Who else? Yuri Prochazka, Jan Blachowicz. Everyone's able to take him down. Magomed Ankalaev arguably has the best wrestling out of all these guys. Maybe not the greatest submissions, but you can find the TKO potentially. When it's on the feet, Alex Pereira is the better striker. He will land low kicks, and that will be a massive problem for Magomed Ankalaev. I just don't think he's going to be able to stuff the takedowns. Maybe he kind of survives, and then the fight starts on the feet, and he lands something big at the beginning of the rounds. But ultimately, I do think that Magomed Ankalaev would find almost any takedown that he wants against Alex Pereira, unfortunately. But I think the play to do here is Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill at UFC 300, if Jamahal Hill can do it. If not, UFC 301, because I remember Jamahal Hill saying he'd be ready to return at May, which would be UFC 301. So that makes a lot of sense. I think Islam Makhachev has called for June, which is UFC 302. And then is Conor McGregor June or July return? I think that would be July, because International Fight Week is July. So then Conor McGregor, UFC 303. Anyways, Magomed Ankalaev, Alex Pereira is not a main event of UFC 300 because it could go 2 ways. Alex Pereira goes out there and dominates Magomed Ankalaev and finds a really sick knockout. In that case, I would love that. But on paper, a lot of people are going to say all fight week, Magomed Ankalaev is so boring. And I think it will be a boring fight where Magomed Ankalaev would probably find a late TKO on the ground, and it wouldn't be fun to see. And Magomed Ankalaev is not promotable. Throw in Jamahal Hill, who talks shit, who will make the fight week interesting. I'm not a big Magomed Ankalaev fan. Hater. I'm kind of neutral about the guy. I do like a lot of light heavyweights, so I probably won't cheer for him against a lot of guys. I think Jamahal Hill is pretty cool. Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira are my 2 most favorite fighters. But anyways, I think Magomed Ankalaev would take down Alex Pereira, TKO him late. I probably said that 3 times already. I think he should get the title shot after Jamahal Hill fights Alex Pereira at UFC 301. I think the main event of UFC 300 will probably end up being Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya if Dricus wins this Saturday, or next Saturday, a week from today, or Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev if Sean Strickland beats Dricus du Plessis. I think that's probably how it's going to work out. I think that's a more worthy UFC 300 main event. I don't think Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev moves the needle for any casual fans. But yeah, if they're going to do Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira next as the title shot for the light heavyweight division, don't make it the main event of UFC 300. That's all I beg. I'm not going to complain too much. I think it's very clear that Jamahal Hill deserves the title shot over Ankalaev, but it is what it is. Jamahal Hill might not be ready. I'll cap off the performance by saying, look, Johnny Walker just got knocked out again. It's hard to see where he goes from here. Maybe he takes on a Nikita Krylov, maybe a Jan Blachowicz. I don't know. I don't think Johnny Walker will ever really touch a title in his fight. It's the reason why I picked Magomed Ankalaev over him. I thought he would just shoot takedowns from the get-go because he would have been very desperate for a win, and he would know that he took down Johnny Walker the first time. Although Walker was scrambling back up to the feet, I thought he would find the takedowns, be able to hold him down, potentially do some damage on the ground, and then find a TKO on the feet later in the fight. I predicted round 4 KO would happen in round 2. Good for Magomed Ankalaev. I mean, he looked impressive, but there still are some holes in his striking defense. I just don't think Johnny Walker was really able to debunk those, find the holes, or take advantage of them, because it almost felt like he was playing a little bit too much of a technical game. I know he was having success with the leg kicks, but like I was saying, Johnny Walker's so unorthodox and so sporadic that you don't want Magomed Ankalaev the time to kind of sit there, adjust, and kind of understand what's happening and The more he kind of gets used to the cadence and rhythm of Johnny Walker from range, throwing a couple leg kicks, the more he can kind of predict an unorthodox movement. So like the spinning shit, after Johnny Walker threw 2, it was wraps. Magomed Ankalaev could predict it from a mile away. As soon as Johnny Walker would step to the side, Magomed Ankalaev takes a retreating step, or he ducks under the fucking spinning shit. I'm not really speaking very well right now, but you understand what I'm saying. We'll see where Johnny Walker goes from here. It sucks to see him lose because he is a fun guy to watch, but I don't think he'll ever touch a title. Yeah, Magomed Ankalaev probably gets the next title shot, or he will get a title shot next. Do it after Jamahal Hill versus Alex Pereira, for fuck's sake. Yeah, good performance from Magomed Ankalaev, though. I don't want to take away from him. Yeah, I think he loses to Jamahal Hill, though. I think Jamahal Hill probably stuffs a majority of the takedowns. He showed pretty solid takedown defense against Glover Teixeira, but that was a decomposing Glover Teixeira, not the greatest version of Glover Teixeira, as we all know. But he had some solid scrambles back up to the feet, and I think he's the better striker than Magomed Ankalaev. He's also a southpaw like Magomed Ankalaev, so that'd be a very interesting matchup. You know, light heavyweight, for once, is pretty interesting. We have a champion that's not injured, vacating his title like Jamahal Hill or Yuri did, and Jamahal Hill and Yuri are just about ready to be fighting again. So, well, I guess Yuri is fighting, but Jamal's about to be ready to be fighting again. So all the top contenders are going to be fighting. There's going to be interesting matchups at the top. I'd pick Magomed Ankalaev against Alex Pereira, but I'm not very confident in that pick whatsoever because Alex Pereira is clearly the better striker. Magomed Ankalaev clearly has holes in his striking game. That will be very, very tough for him to deal with, such as the leg kicks and such as just getting hit. You can't get hit against Alex Pereira. But yeah, I'm going to conclude this video there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.